You've been making yourself smaller your whole life, and you didn't even realize it. Every time you toned down your goals because someone called them unrealistic, every time you stopped talking about your dreams because the people around you didn't understand them, every time you explained yourself to someone who was never going to get it anyway, you handed them a piece of yourself, a piece of your vision, a piece of your worth. And the worst part, you did it to make them comfortable. You chose their comfort over your own future. Machiavelli spent his entire life studying power, not the kind handed to you by birth, not luck, not circumstance, the kind of power that is built, deliberately, strategically, from the inside out. And one of the first things he noticed was this: the most dangerous thing a person can do is apologize for their ambition. Not because ambition is perfect, not because your goals will always be understood, but because the moment you start shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's comfort zone, you have already lost. Not to them, to yourself. But before we go any further, let me be completely direct. This is not a lesson in arrogance. This is not permission to bulldoze people or ignore consequences. This is about self-respect, about understanding that your ambition is not a burden on the world. It is your greatest contribution to it. Today, you'll discover 7 Machiavellian lessons on self-worth and ambition. Lessons that will teach you to stop apologizing, stop shrinking, and start owning fully and completely who you truly are. Now drop this affirmation in the comments. I will never apologize for who I am becoming. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Ambition is not arrogance. Stop confusing the two. Most people who tell you that you're being too ambitious are not looking out for you. They are protecting themselves. Here's the psychology behind it. When someone sees your ambition, it forces them to confront their own absence of it. And that's uncomfortable, deeply uncomfortable. So instead of addressing their own fear, they project it outward, onto you. They call your goals unrealistic. They question your motives. They tell you to be more humble, more grounded, more normal. And if you're not careful, you start to believe them. Machiavelli once said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." The same principle applies to you. Look at who is criticizing your ambition. Are they building something? Are they growing? Are they doing the actual work? Or are they sitting on the sidelines commenting on a game they were never brave enough to play? Here's the truth. Arrogance is believing you're better than everyone else without evidence. Ambition is believing you are capable of becoming more than you currently are and acting on that belief. These are not the same thing, not remotely close. The problem is, most people have been conditioned to mistake one for the other, raised in environments where wanting more was considered ungrateful, where aiming higher was seen as a threat, where success was something to hide rather than pursue openly. So they learned to apologize, to preface every goal with disclaimers, to make their dreams smaller before anyone else could shrink them first. But here's what Machiavelli understood about power. The leader who apologizes for wanting to lead never leads. The person who shrinks their vision to avoid judgment never achieves the vision. The man or woman who waits for permission to be great never becomes great. Permission never comes because people don't give it. You take it, or rather you realize you never needed it in the first place. Stop apologizing for wanting more. Stop explaining your ambition to people who have settled for less. And stop confusing the boldness of your goals with the arrogance of your ego. They are not the same thing. And the sooner you separate them, the sooner you step into real, unshakable power. Lesson 2. Never shrink to make others comfortable. You know what's interesting about people who play small? Most of them don't do it because they want to. They do it because someone somewhere taught them that playing big was dangerous. Maybe it was a parent who said, "Don't get too full of yourself." Maybe it was a teacher who punished you for thinking outside the lines. Maybe it was a friend who pulled away every time you succeeded. And so gradually you learned to manage your wins, to downplay your achievements, to stay just small enough that no one felt uncomfortable around you. That is one of the most destructive habits a person can develop. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Most people hear that and think it's about cruelty. It's not. It's about respect. It's about not making your sense of safety dependent on whether everyone likes you. Because the moment you make someone else's comfort more important than your own growth, you have given them control over your life, and you handed it to them voluntarily. Think about what that actually looks like in practice. Every time you downplay a promotion, you're trading your ambition for their comfort. Every time you stay quiet about a win, you're trading your pride for their approval. Every time you pretend to want less than you actually want, you are paying with your future so that someone else doesn't have to feel awkward. And here's the brutal reality. The people you're protecting are not protecting you. They're not lying awake at night worried about your comfort. They are not holding themselves back for your sake. You are the only one paying that price. Here's what strategic self-respect actually looks like. You stop shrinking, not aggressively, not loudly, just quietly, firmly, completely. You stop minimizing your achievements. You stop apologizing for your goals. You stop editing your ambition for audiences who never believed in you to begin with. Because here's what becomes true when you finally stop. The right people, the ones who actually belong in your life, they are not threatened by your greatness. They are inspired by it. And the wrong people, the ones who needed you small to feel safe about themselves, they were never really on your side. Not once. Lesson 3. Your goals are not up for public debate. Here is a mistake almost everyone makes at least once. They share a dream before it is strong enough to survive other people's doubt. They're excited. They have a vision. They can feel it starting to form. So they tell someone. A close friend, a family member, a colleague they trust. And that person, without even meaning to be cruel, says something that plants a seed. That's risky. That sounds unrealistic. That's not how things work in the real world. And suddenly, the dream feels smaller, weaker, less certain than it did 5 minutes ago. That is not an accident. That is psychology. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." But the wise person also knows precisely when to speak and when to be silent. They understand that unformed ideas are vulnerable. Like a seedling, your vision needs time to develop roots before it can survive exposure to harsh weather. Share it too soon before it has weight and conviction behind it, and the first strong wind of doubt will knock it down. This is what I call strategic silence around your ambitions. You don't share your goals with everyone. You don't explain your 5-year plan at the dinner table. You don't present your dreams for public commentary before they have become results. Not because you're ashamed, not because you're afraid, but because your vision belongs to you, and you do not owe anyone a preview. Think about every person you admire who has built something real. Did they spend years explaining what they were going to do? Or did they do it quietly and let the results announce themselves? They protected their vision ferociously, and when they finally revealed what they had built, there was nothing to debate. It was already real, already undeniable. The doubt had nowhere to land. This is not secrecy. This is wisdom. There is a meaningful difference between hiding who you are and protecting what you are building. You can be completely honest about your values, your character, your work ethic, while still keeping your specific plans close. Your goals are not a democracy. They do not require a committee's approval. They require only your commitment. Protect your vision like it is your most valuable asset, because it is. Lesson 4. Self-worth is not earned from others. It is decided by you. Here is one of the most destructive patterns in human psychology: waiting for external validation to feel worthy. Waiting for someone to confirm that you are good enough. Waiting for the promotion to feel successful. Waiting for the relationship to feel lovable. Waiting for the followers, the recognition, the money, the applause to feel like you finally matter. And the brutal truth about seeking validation from outside yourself is this: it never arrives in the amount you actually need. Because the amount you need keeps shifting. When you get the promotion, you need the raise. When you get the raise, you need the title. When you get the title, you need the room to change when you walk in. The goalpost moves, always, infinitely, and you spend your entire life chasing something that is specifically designed to stay out of reach. Machiavelli once said, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command." And you cannot command anything, not your circumstances, not your relationships, not your future, if you have not first commanded your own sense of worth. Self-worth is a decision, not a reward, not a destination, not something you earn by accumulating enough impressive achievements. It is a fundamental, deliberate choice about who you are and what you deserve. Made now, not when things improve, not when someone finally sees you clearly. Now, here's what that decision looks like in practice. A person who has decided their own worth does not chase approval. They do not adjust their behavior based on whether someone claps for them. They hold their standards not because people are watching, but because the standards matter. They maintain their boundaries not because someone is keeping score, but because their integrity matters. They do all of this regardless of whether anyone acknowledges it. And here is why this matters beyond just feeling better about yourself. The person who decides their own worth becomes nearly impossible to manipulate. If someone tries to control you by withholding approval, and you do not need their approval, they have no leverage. If someone tries to make you feel small, to gain power over you, and you have already decided your own value, their words have no target. They pass right through you. You become untouchable, not because nothing affects you, but because your foundation is not built on what others think. It is built on what you know to be true. Decide your worth today, not after the next achievement, not when someone finally says the right thing. Right now, exactly as you are, fully and completely enough to take up every inch of the space you have been given. Lesson 5. Silence your critics with results, not arguments. You will meet people in this life who doubt you, who dismiss you openly, who tell you that your vision is too large, your confidence is delusion, your belief in yourself is embarrassing to watch. And you will feel the pull to respond, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong with words. Resist it, not because they don't deserve to be challenged, not because their words don't sting, but because engaging with doubt on its own terms gives it power. Arguing with critics pulls you down into their world, and in their world, on that battlefield, doubt always wins. Machiavelli once said, "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception, not deception in the dishonest sense." Strategy, the strategy of refusing to play a game you cannot win by the rules it was designed around. You cannot argue someone into believing in you. You cannot convince a doubter through passion alone, because their doubt is not actually about your abilities. It is about their fear, their own unexamined limitations projected outward onto someone moving in a direction they gave up on. And fear does not respond to argument. It only responds to proof. So here is the move. Stop arguing. Start building. Let the critics talk while you work. Let the doubters question while you execute. Let the skeptics watch from the sidelines while you produce results that make their doubt irrelevant. Because here is what no one tells you about success. The best response to every person who said you couldn't is not a rebuttal. It is becoming the evidence that they were wrong. Becoming so undeniably, so visibly, so completely successful that the argument dies on its own. Think about the people who were told no their entire lives and kept going anyway. They did not win by convincing their critics. They won by building something so real, so visible, so impossible to dismiss that the criticism became background noise. And eventually those same critics became the ones claiming they always believed in you. Your results will say everything your words never could. Stop fighting for credibility in conversations. Earn it in outcomes. Lesson 6. Stop explaining yourself to people who don't deserve access. There is something quietly destructive about the habit of over-explaining. You probably recognize it in yourself. Someone questions a decision, and immediately you feel the urge to justify every step of your thinking. Someone challenges a choice and you launch into a full defense. Your reasoning, your background, your past experiences laid out for them to examine as if their understanding is required for your decision to be valid. It isn't. Machiavelli once said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." The people who truly know you, the ones who have earned access to your inner world, do not need you to justify your worth. They already understand it. The people demanding explanation often aren't asking to understand you. They're testing whether they can make you doubt yourself. And here is what over-explaining actually communicates beneath the surface. It says, "My decision is not valid unless you agree with it." It says, "Your opinion has authority over my choices." It says, "I need your approval to feel secure in who I am." And the moment your behavior says those things, you surrender. There are 3 kinds of people who will question your decisions in life. First, people who genuinely care about you and are asking from love. These people deserve your honesty. Second, people who are simply curious and want to understand. These people deserve a brief, confident response. Third, people who are challenging you because they want to control you, diminish you, or make themselves feel superior. These people deserve nothing. Not your time, not your energy, not a single sentence of justification. The problem is, most people treat all 3 groups identically. Equal access, equal explanation, equal vulnerability to everyone who asks. And in doing so, they hand their power to the very people least deserving of it. Calculated opacity is the art of sharing only what is necessary, not because you're hiding something, but because not everything you think, feel, plan, or build is meant for everyone. Your inner world is not a democracy. Your ambitions do not require a public vote. Your self-worth does not need external ratification to become real. Practice this. The next time someone questions a decision you have already fully thought through, instead of explaining yourself, say simply, "I've considered it carefully," and stop there. Notice the shift in the room. Notice how it feels to hold your ground without defending it. Because what you'll discover is this: quiet confidence needs no justification. It simply is. Lesson 7. Control your narrative or someone else will write it for you. Here is the final and perhaps most powerful Machiavellian lesson on self-worth. Every person you meet is constructing a story about who you are, drawing conclusions from your words, your behavior, your silences, your reactions, your presence. And if you are not intentional about the story, you are projecting someone else is writing it, and they will write a version that serves them, not you. Machiavelli once said, "A prince never lacks legitimate reasons to break his promise." In other words, the world will reinterpret you whenever convenient. People will reshape your story to fit whatever narrative is most comfortable for their own understanding of the world. And if you have not established your own narrative clearly and deliberately, you become a character in someone else's story rather than the author of your own. Controlling your narrative does not mean lying. It does not mean performing a version of yourself that isn't real. It means being deliberate about how you show up, what you emphasize, what you protect, what you reveal, and what you reserve. It means deciding the version of yourself the world gets to see instead of letting the world decide for you. Think about the most powerful magnetic people you know. They all share one quiet quality. You feel like you understand them, but you realize you don't fully. There is always more. Always depth you haven't reached. Always another layer that stays just out of reach. That is not an accident. That is a deliberate strategic choice. They have decided what their story is. They have decided what they stand for. They have decided which aspects of their character belong in the light. And everything else they keep guarded. Protected. Strategic. You have the same power, but you have to choose to use it. Here's where you start. Get absolutely clear on who you are. Not who people say you are. Not who you were 3 years ago. Not who someone else needs you to be to stay comfortable. Who you actually are today, in your most deliberate, most powerful, most unapologetic self. Then let that version of you be visible. Not loudly, not aggressively, just clearly, consistently, and without apology. Because consistency is what builds reputation, and reputation is the most powerful, most durable form of influence that exists. When you control your narrative, people can no longer project their limitations onto you. They can no longer define you by your worst moment. They can no longer reduce you to a convenient story that serves their agenda. Because you have already written the story, and you told it better than they ever could. You have just learned 7 Machiavellian lessons on never apologizing for your ambition. But before you close this, let me leave you with this. The world will always have people who are uncomfortable with your growth. People who will call your confidence arrogance, your ambition greed, your self-worth selfishness. And the longer you wait for those people to give you permission to be great, the longer you stay exactly where you are. You never needed their permission. You never did. Machiavelli's greatest lesson was never about power over others. It was about power over self, over your reactions, over your narrative, over your worth, over your ambition. When you own those things fully, completely, unapologetically, nobody can take them from you. Nobody can shrink what you refuse to shrink yourself. Pick the one lesson that hit you hardest today. For the next 7 days, live it. Quietly, strategically, completely. And watch how everything around you begins to shift. If this video gave you something you needed to hear, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more content on strategy, psychology, and mastering your own power. Drop a comment and tell me which lesson are you going to live first, and which one of these have you been violating without even knowing it. Until next time, never apologize for who you are becoming. Stay strategic, stay powerful, stay completely unshakably yourself.